我们比你更担心。
I woke up and all our orders were gone. Because of these new tariffs from the US, every American client is telling us to pause production and delay our plans. This is a mess.
There's a video showing how bad things have gotten. It's like the sky has fallen. Orders were canceled because of the US tariffs. Warehouses are packed with unsold products, and the factory floor is basically just being cleaned now, with no real work happening. Ever since Trump raised tariffs, businesses in mainland China have been feeling the chill. Even though CCP General Secretary Xi Jinping talks tough about retaliating against Trump's tariffs, the truth is the Chinese government doesn't care about how much regular people are losing, and hitting back will only bring even harsher responses. America, as the buyer, is the one setting the rules. If the seller tries to challenge them, they'll lose badly, ending up with nothing.
Ooh, my friends, China is feeling the pinch. I'm going to examine this whole trade war thing from the average person's perspective. A lot of us are not experiencing this, especially in any country outside of China and the US, right? But I was trying to explain this to my daughter this morning, my 16-year-old, as I was taking her to school, if she understood what trade wars were and how it would affect us individually. I'm always trying to make her understand how the world works, you know? So my friends, in this video, what we're going to do is look at both sides of the fence, China and the US. And the only reason I'm looking at these two countries is because these are the only two countries who are not negotiating. These are the two that are the biggest trade partners between each other. And we have to examine it because it will affect Americans. Regardless of how much you love Trump, and I understand why he's doing what he's doing, and I'll explain it as we go forth, and why it's necessary for him to do what he's doing, I want you all to understand that it's going to hurt you all. It's going to devastate a large percentage of the Chinese market. It's going to devastate a large percentage of Chinese individuals. I will demonstrate it from people who are living in China right now who are showing you the receipts. Okay? So my friends, like this video on the way in, we're going to do something completely different today. No relationship issues, but like I said, this channel deals with a three-prong factor with life, especially when it comes to advice to men. Money, health, relationships. Those three things must work in unison in order for us to live a healthy, happy life. So please like the video. So subscribe, my friends. Book a session with the older man if you need any help with life, money, fitness, helping you with your YouTube channel or your social media program, anything to do with helping you make money. I can help you. Listen, I'm no expert. I'm no economist. I've just done quite well for myself, and I can tell you some of the mistakes that you should not make, and I can also tell you, based on my life experience, where I can see a lot of today's modern society moving to. Okay? So, book a session, and better yet, join our membership system, and of course, pick up my Content Creators Toolkit to start making some content. Okay? So, let's get into this. So let's continue with this video.
April 8th, U.S. President Trump officially signed an executive order to raise tariffs on Chinese goods to 104%.
They will be going into effect at 12:01 a.m. tonight, so effectively tomorrow, yes.
That 104% rate is now in effect. China has vowed to fight to the end in this trade war, but the real tariff rate is even higher because this 104% is on top of the 20% already in place from Trump's first term. That means the average tariff on Chinese goods is now close to 125%. One man in China posted a video calling on the Chinese people and the government to stay clear-headed. With tariffs going up like this, he advised they shouldn't go head-to-head with the U.S. Otherwise, they'd be gambling with people's livelihoods.
And that, my friend, is where we have to look. I was trying to explain to my daughter, if she understood what tariffs were, which is basically a tax on any goods coming in to a particular country, I had to explain to her two things have to occur. The company purchasing the products from overseas, when it comes into the port in the U.S., they have to pay a tax on that. Simple. That means the goods cost more to the person who's selling it in that country. Let's just take the U.S. for example. If that company is not able to absorb that price increase, that tax that has been added to each and every single product, then they have to pass that on to the consumer. That means that the price of everything in the store will go up, and that cost It's going to be borne by you and me, the average guy. So we are going to be hurting if we need those products. If we don't need those products, we just won't buy them. But let's take it back a little bit. If we don't buy it at the higher price, the company who had bought it at the high price from China is now stuck with that product. So he has to sell it at a loss. That company will now look at going out of business because they can no longer buy a product that the customer wants to pay the higher price for. Make sense? But let's reverse a little bit further. Let's look at the shipping. So in between the US and China, there's the people who ship the products. If all the shipping is cut off from China, the shipping companies, the freight forwarding companies, all of those companies are going to feel the pain of that as well, because that supply chain and that business has just disappeared. And then let's go right back to China. Those factories that have bought raw materials at a really high price, that were making very small margins on the production of it, they're going to be hurting as well. So along the entire supply chain, people are going to be losing jobs. That's the problem to the average guy. We haven't even gotten into the stock market yet.
It was another bad day for the markets amid worsening trade tensions with China, wiping out much of yesterday's gain after the president announced the 90-day pause on tariffs. At a cabinet meeting this afternoon, the president said he was not tracking a fall in the stock market.
Why? I don't know why President Trump would even say that. We all know that he gauges his performance based on the market. Every single time the market went in favor of him and his policies, he would always say, look at the stock market. Apparently now that the stock market is just falling, he's not looking at it. Really? This is a businessman. Of course he's watching the bloody stock market. This is how he gauges his success to the American people. Let's continue.
Even as the market declined all around him, with the S&P 500 down more than 3%. Stocks tumbled after the White House clarified that its tariff on all Chinese goods is at least 145%, even higher than previously believed. On Wednesday, Trump pulled back on a series of harsh tariffs, escalating his trade war with China, but lowering many of the tariffs he had just imposed on the rest of the world. As NBC put it, Liberation Day just gave way to Capitulation Day. Or as the Wall Street Journal put it, he blinked. Trump indeed is the only one who blinked, while China, Canada, Mexico, and the European Union did not. Trump is creating an illusion, folks, that he holds all the cards. But the truth is that's increasingly clear. He does not hold that much, if anything at all.
Listen, this is how I see this whole thing between Trump and China and the rest of the world. It is without a doubt that America has been taken advantage of by the rest of the world with regards to tariffs. Okay? Americans consume a hell of a lot. I think probably 1/3 of world consumption is done in America. Americans consume a lot, even though their population is one of the smallest. So we know that there is a massive trade deficit between America and a lot of other countries. So something had to be done, without a doubt. I absolutely feel that President Trump has the right to start getting on par with other countries when it comes to tariff. However, what I see is a man who is only going to be in power for one term. He's an aging man. And we all know he has an ego. And what I see is a man who wants to leave an undeniable legacy, a powerful statement at the end of his life. What more powerful legacy would a man be able to attach to his name than the man who brought the U.S. out of the deep hole of debt and made it a country of surplus again? That hasn't been done. I think the last time that occurred was back in the days of Reagan. Let me ask ChatGPT, when was the last time the U.S. had a trade surplus? And who was president at that time?
The last time the US had a trade surplus was in 1975. Since then, the country has consistently run a trade deficit. In 1975, Gerald Ford was the President of the United States.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, there you go. Way back then. So all I'm saying is this would be the most amazing legacy for Mr. Trump to be able to leave office with. And I'm looking at this simply from a businessman perspective. But I honestly feel that he's not handling this whole issue with finesse. He's just coming in with a bullying tactic. But now he's realizing that that's not the real way to address this issue, because countries have other weapons that they could fight with. Currency manipulation is one of them. And the fact that he's picked a war with the one country that has literally the monopoly on manufacturing globally is a problem. And it's not a democratic country either. It's not like their politicians are not going to get elected again because, they messed up the economy. This is a communist party who will stay in, regardless of how much they hurt their own people. I love this guy's channel. He always speaks some hard facts when it comes to trading and economics. Brilliant dude here. U.S. markets collapse. Tariffs not pause. Markets crash. And this channel is called Tech Lead.
Well, it was a good run while it lasted, but the stock markets after a quick jump yesterday have continued to slide, and the U.S. is basically out of ammo. We've got nothing left here. And there was a lot of confusion where people thought that Trump had paused the tariffs for 90 days, jumping into euphoria, but the reality is the tariffs are still ongoing. It is not paused. The baseline 10% tariffs continue. And the only tariff that actually matters, the now 145% tariff on China, is absolutely disastrous news. This is nothing to celebrate, and we get 90 additional days of instability where companies cannot invest or operate in the US. All expenditures are on pause, all investments are on pause, and this pause gives other countries a chance to better prepare to come up with trade deals amongst themselves, which you will see. And essentially, it's going to be 90 days of global retaliation against the US. And so the markets continued bleeding into the red today, but Tesla down 6.3%, Meta down 6%, Amazon negative 4.7%, and Disney also down 6% on confirmed news that China will be limiting blockbuster movies, Hollywood movies within their country. And this is only the beginning. I mean, they're not even done retaliating, and China's silence is deafening. You know that phrase, don't be afraid of the dog that barks, it seldom bites. So in this case, we may have just won against China and we can celebrate, right? We beat them into submission and they're quiet now, or they're going to bury us now. The most crucial chart in all of this is going to be the dollar index, and we can see the dollar is weakening substantially. It has dropped like 7.5% year to date. And the critical problem with this is we can't print. The Fed has its hands tied, even though Donald Trump and his whole administration is calling for Jerome Powell and the Fed to ease up the rates, to start printing some money, to add some liquidity. The Fed is quiet on this front. They cannot print because if they do, they risk the dollar collapsing even more, weakening to lower levels. Essentially, we choose the collapse of the dollar or the collapse of the US economy. And so what we really wanted to see here, and usually what happens when the economy starts cratering and there are tariffs put in for protectionism, is that the dollar should have strengthened. But we did not see that. And with tariffs coming in, that protectionism should also boost the strength of the dollar. That did not happen either. That would have allowed us to lower rates and to inject more liquidity into the system and perhaps even make our exports more competitive against, say, the yuan. But actually, at a time like this, when we cannot lower rates, we're seeing the Chinese yuan weaker than the US dollar, and we cannot outcompete that. And this is making Chinese exports more competitive than American exports, and so we have our hands tied here. And so this chart really is the only one that matters here, the dollar index. We need to see this actually start going up to have confidence that the Fed can actually start printing up money and loosen up on the rates. And so Trump here decided to ask the Supreme Court to let him fire agency leaders. People are saying he wants to fire the Fed's Jerome Powell. But Jerome Powell's priority is to the Federal Reserve and protecting the strength of the US dollar, not so much in boosting the public markets, which is what the Secretary of Treasury and President Trump want. So the tariff apocalypse has not been canceled, and whether the dollar implodes or the US economy implodes, we may be in a checkmate situation here. All roads may lead to a flight to safety, say Bitcoin.
So what I'm trying to show you guys here is the problems on both sides. Now, we are not traders. I'm in the market, but I purchase bonds. but that's my retirement fund. That's pretty much just sitting there. So whether the market go up or down, the only time I get hurt when I'm getting a dividend at the end of each quarter. But your retirement fund, your 401k, all of that is tied into the market. It will hurt you if you are on a fixed income from the government. So we have to understand the pain that the average guy is going to experience. And this is what we're not seeing. And this is what I was trying to explain to my daughter this morning about just factory workers losing their jobs. I mean, this tariff war isn't going to really affect, rich people. This is going to hit the bottom line of the average person on the street. This gentleman here on CNN sort of describes it.
Average American right here at this table, because you guys are talking and I don't really understand what it is that you guys are saying. Like, seriously, I don't get it. The only thing that a lot of people who have families, who carpool, who go to and from the work, who live in the suburbs, who live in the cities, they're just wondering when things are going to get bad. That's what they're wondering. And all of the macroeconomic talk is going over their head. And honestly, I feel for them. I feel for them because it doesn't seem like anyone is talking directly to them. They're talking to the markets, they're talking to each other, they're talking to the financial system, but no one's telling somebody, hey, at the end of this summer, when you need to buy school supplies for your kids to go back to school when it's backpack time, like that money will be there and those prices will be stable. No one is talking to them. And I think that's the biggest tragedy in all of this.
And there we go. This is when it's going to hurt. So today is Friday, April 11th, and it is 1:56 p.m. in Dubai right now. And just got the announcement that China just raised their tariff to 124%, matching the U.S.'s tariffs. So now it's tit for tat. This is freaking nuts. So, and the Asian markets are just plummeting right now, the stock markets. A lot of you are still sleeping in the West, but let's look at a few of these traders who have money in the stock market.
I started with 580,000, but now there's less than 170,000 left. I've already lost 415,000. Just today, I lost 40,000 in a single day. My account is about to be liquidated, and after this, I probably won't be able to update videos anymore. The market is just too harsh.
On April 7th, China's stock market experienced an epic collapse. By the close, the Shanghai Composite Index had fallen 7.3%, dropping below the 3,100-point mark. The Shenzhen Composite Index fell by 9.6%, and the Chinext Index dropped by 12.5%. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index closed down by 13.2%, with the Hang Seng Tech Index plunging by 17.2%. A total of 4,430 A shares fell by more than 10%, accounting for 98.44% of the 5,400 stocks being traded. Almost all of them hit the daily limit down. The market lost 7.5 trillion yuan in value in just one day, making it the day with the largest number of limit down stocks and the greatest loss in market value in history.
Ooh.
It's really hard to break even. Today, I showed my stocks to an experienced investor. He told me, get rid of it, cut your losses. When he said that, I felt a chill in my heart. If I quit now, that means I've lost all my money and I can't break even. But if I don't quit, I might lose even more. Right now, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. I just want to break even. My losses have already reached 110,000 yuan. I have kids. Where am I supposed to make that much money to cover this gap? The speed at which I'm losing money in the A-shares market is just insane. My investments could be wiped out overnight. I can't even speak anymore. Just look at this. Yesterday, I lost tens of thousands. Today, I lost tens of thousands. I just want to advise everyone, especially those who love trading stocks, to be careful. I lost more than 9,000 today, and that's an entire month of salary gone. Honestly, men leaving me didn't make me cry, but this morning, when I opened my stock account, I couldn't hold back the tears. When you see others making money in the stock market, don't envy them. When you lose money, you won't even see the tears. Just to correct myself, I didn't lose 420,000. That was just in the morning. By the time the stock market closed in the afternoon, I had lost 485,000. I'm fully invested in 13 stocks, and only 2 didn't hit the limit down. Didn't they say not to put all your eggs in one basket? Well, my basket just flipped over.
Yeah, she was trying to be as safe as possible. 13 different stocks instead of one. The entire basket got flipped over. This is why I keep telling you guys, better to have a partner so that you can always have somebody else there with you. But this isn't a relationship video, even though at all times these finances and relationships are closely related and should be closely tied. But if you think it's only China that's feeling the pinch, let's just look at a woman who has a nice little Amazon business that, you know, she's making a tidy income on, and this is what happened here.
In this tiny warehouse in Northern California, Dusty Kenny is getting her products ready to sell on Amazon.
We make baby spoons, baby placemats, bento boxes, bowls, plates, cups, and we manufacture them in China, and they come via sea in all these boxes here.
But now Kenny is facing a giant additional cost, a 125% tariff on all her goods coming from China.
We have tens of thousands of products here in this warehouse. And when you add a tariff to all of that, and you're trying to absorb that for your customer to not raise prices on them, that adds up to an astronomical amount.
Wait, if the products have already been purchased and sitting in America already, she shouldn't have to be paying tariffs on those. Unless these products are still in China and haven't been shipped yet, then she shouldn't have to pay tariffs. I'm a bit confused. Anyway, let's hear what else is happening.
On April 2nd, Trump announced big, aggressive tariffs, a 10% baseline on nearly all imports to the U.S. and far steeper rates on many nations.
In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them.
This is my livelihood. This is how we put food on the table. It could put me out of business.
Stocks tumbled amid fears of reciprocal tariffs, rising prices, and slowing consumer spend. Although Trump did put a 90-day pause on tariffs for some countries on April 9th.
Prices will go up in the short term. There's no doubt about it.
So all I'm trying to get you guys to see is where it's going to hurt you all. Because it's going to hurt America and it's going to hurt China. Things are going to get dark for you all, my friends. Now, here's the other issue that we're going to face. But it might be to people who are living in Asian countries and people who are living in European countries that don't have these problems with China. Because my American friends, you have to realize that China don't have a problem with everybody else in the world. It's just America. America started the problem with every other country, not China. But China is a manufacturing superpower. They have the technology. They have the workforce that have been trained to do it. And this is why I see holes in the program with what Trump is trying to accomplish. Because he wants these companies to come to America. But there's no workforce that is trained for manufacturing in America. At least not the manufacturing that Chinese can do, because they're expert at putting small parts together. They have the technology. They have perfected the technology that have been honed and refined over decades. So this idea of companies coming into America and building factories, etc., etc. Then you're going to have to bring a workforce from China to do this, to do the jobs, because Americans not going to be able to do it. It's not going to happen. That's a pipe dream if you think that we're going to get the American mindset to sit there putting in small screws and punching holes in little things. That's not what Americans do. Tell me I'm wrong.
It's like shutting down all U.S. agricultural imports. It's all about soybeans. And Brazil will be by far the main beneficiary, the biggest supplier that can replace U.S. soybeans to China. China's already starting to buy up large amounts of Brazilian soy. And so markets are starting to work around the U.S. We also see China and the European Union starting to have negotiations on Chinese EV vehicles and removing tariffs. The president of the EU is also saying here, Europe is open for trade and investment. We negotiate, not escalate. So we're stepping up as a competitive powerhouse, simplifying rules, invest here, benefit here in the EU. So the funny thing is, we thought we had played a brilliant chess move to isolate China, getting all countries on our side. But in fact, China isn't the one doing anything to the other countries. They haven't isolated themselves. They're still in the same position. And in fact, China stood up for the other countries. And because they did that, they saved the other countries with the 90-day tariff pause. The reality may be that we just isolated ourselves. And now we have Chinese sellers on Amazon saying they have to get out of the US. They must reduce investment and put more resources into other regions like Europe, Canada, Mexico, and the rest of the world. What's to stop Americans from traveling to Canada, Europe, or Asia, for example, to upgrade their iPhones, laptops, and clothes? A secondary market will develop, and we'll see quite possibly US businesses collapse, unable to compete with a 100% markup. And then consumer spending may shift to these other countries. Manufacturing doesn't come back. China continues to export. And sure, some people have said most Americans aren't going to travel abroad just to buy some device or gadget or upgrade their laptop, but most Americans do take like one vacation a year, and during that one vacation, say on a Mexican cruise or a drive up to Canada, during that trip they can upgrade their phones for the whole family, upgrade their laptops. It could be normalized. And we are also seeing at the same time, coinciding with the tariffs, the tech AI bubble popping. And there may be no recovery from this, even if the tariffs were later to be rescinded. Microsoft is pulling back on data center development in Illinois, North Dakota, Wisconsin, and that is on top of last week's news that they have walked away from 2 other data center projects in the US and Europe. So we're seeing paused investments, halted operations. Essentially, all US corporations are at the standstill waiting.
It's amazing how one man on one side of the world can see the problems that will occur from his perspective. The Chinese who are feeling the pain on their side of the globe, they have a different perspective. I just want you to play what this gentleman says here.
These past couple days, I've had enough. Stop talking about fighting the U.S. over tariffs like it's some action movie. Acting tough is a dead end. Making money is what actually matters. The U.S. has 350 million people and takes up a third of global consumer orders. Think about that. Out of every $3 spent around the world, 1 comes from the US. The EU has 450 million people, but their purchasing power is nowhere close to America's. We've got 1.4 billion people in China working ourselves to the bone, but our spending power is only about 1/5 of America's. The numbers don't lie, cursing the US. For being a bully doesn't put food on the table. The US dollar is still the passport to the global market. Everyone's shouting about how we don't need the American market. Wake up. The American market is valuable. Numbers speak louder than slogans. Instead of shouting about resistance, we should be thinking about how to make money within the existing rules. When your wallet is full of US dollars, then you can talk about upgrading industries or ditching the dollar. Until then, it's all just talk. Lower your head, make money, it's not shameful. Betting ordinary people's lives on pride, that's the real stupidity.
A business owner in Tangshan, Hebei, tried to fight back using what you'd call mental victory tactics. He put up a big sign on the screen in his shop. It said, "Starting today, we will charge American customers an extra 104% service fee. If you don't understand, please contact the U.S. Embassy." A netizen hit him with the perfect response. "Dude, do you even have any American customers?" And the boss said, "Nope." So how is that retaliation? On the evening of April 8th, U.S. time, after announcing a 104% tariff on Chinese imports, Trump attended the National Republican Congressional Committee's President's Dinner and accused the Chinese Communist Party of manipulating currency to offset the impact of tariffs. As the U.S.-China trade war intensifies, Beijing let the yuan fall to a historic low of 7.4 against the dollar on April 8th, something it hadn't done in 19 months. This was the lowest rate since September 2023. For a long time, investors considered 7.2 to be a soft bottom line that China would not let the currency fall below. According to the Financial Times, China's central bank set the exchange rate right at 7.2 the following Tuesday, basically signaling that they're willing to let the yuan drop further in order to cushion the blow from U.S. tariffs. Wen Lucheng posted on Facebook that Trump has made his position very clear. If the Chinese government doesn't back down, he won't just refuse to negotiate, he'll double down. This isn't a negotiation anymore, it's an ultimatum. In reality, it's more like a declaration of economic war. Wen said that if China backs down now, it could trigger a wave of nationalism at home and seriously challenge Xi Jinping's legitimacy. So the Chinese government is probably trying to figure out how much of a hit they can take from these 100% tariffs, and whether they can use domestic consumption or third-party markets to make up for the export losses. As long as things hold up inside China, they might just keep pushing through. On April 4th, Trump announced reciprocal tariffs on countries around the world. While roughly 70 countries rushed to negotiate and avoid damage to their own people, the Chinese government chose to retaliate with a 34% tariff on U.S. goods and vowed to fight the U.S. to the end.
You try selling to Southeast Asia and you're getting paid in Indonesian rupiah. You sell in South America, you're getting pesos. In a blink, currency exchange rates eat up your profits. But when you sell to the US, you're getting US dollars, money you can spend anywhere in the world. Look at the Russia-Ukraine war. No matter how bad that got, the US dollar still sits on top as the king of global currencies. That's just the reality. If you walk away from the dollar system, you're basically giving up your ticket to participate in global trade. People talk about shifting to Africa or Latin America, but come on, our brothers in Africa don't even have steady electricity. How are they supposed to buy your appliances? Only the US has 300 million middle-class consumers ready to pay cash. No games, no credit delays. Even with the sanctions these past couple of years, it's still the cleanest, most straightforward market in the world. Compared to all the places where you have to bribe or beg just to do business, the US is like a commercial paradise. One thing you have to remember, capital is 10,000 times smarter than you. The reality is, if you're cut off from the US, the world's main consumption engine, your products won't even have the chance to lose money just for exposure. Relying on Russia or Iran, those countries are barely staying afloat by selling off their own resources. It's easy to bash US hegemony, but hard to face reality.
And he's right. He is right. China will flood the rest of the world with the goods that they did not sell to America, that are now currently sitting in warehouses. And they will flood the market cheaply. A lot of countries won't appreciate that, but it will happen. China won't lose in this battle because they really do have the rest of the world to actually work with. No one can manufacture products like China can. They have the infrastructure and they have the people, they have the intellectual capability to do it. So we're looking at a complex fight here, my friends. I don't have the answers, of course. I can only report what I see and give you my little 2 cents to help you understand what's going on. That's it. That's all I was hoping to do in this video. My opinion is like everybody else's. All we are commentators on the sideline watching the extreme wealthy and powerful play their games. That's it. There's no leverage here. You and I going out and not buying a product because it's Chinese or whatever country ain't gonna make a difference. We're watching the mammoths of the world compete and have a fight against each other. Thankfully, it's not like Russia and Ukraine where, we're shedding blood, but it can be just as painful because one man's livelihood, it's rough when you have to be stressed out about whether you're going to have a job by the end of the day, whether your stock, your portfolio, your investments are going to even exist. That's the hard part of this war for the average person. So my friends, hey, I'm going to cut it off here. Let me know what you think of. Let's hear what you guys have to say in the comment section. Let's have a conversation, shall we? And of course, book a session if you need any help. Pick up my Content Creators Toolkit. And please like this video on the way out. So, till tomorrow, remember, my friends, whenever in doubt, always, always ask an older man. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.